Hey, what's going on, guys? In today's video, we're checking out the Caesar Works Lycoris kit here. This is, I believe, the second kit out in this series. The first one I thought was a really cool design. I didn't really care for the color scheme quite as much. It had like quite unique kind of brown color scheme, but it looked like a cool design. So when I saw that they were coming out with this version, I was very excited because I prefer this color scheme for sure. And this one also has some pretty cool weapons and like accessories and stuff with this, with it having that big massive cannon. Seems very much like kind of a homage to a lot of like Super Robot Wars type of stuff with some of the weaponry that it has. And we'll get into all of that in today's review video, of course. But let's go ahead and get started checking out the box and the contents inside. And so on this cool box right here on the front, you can see obviously that huge cannon that it's got and the effect parts for that. That is all actually going to be included in the box, but just to give you a nice close-up look at the illustration. It also has the like decal and marking decals you can see on the illustration here as well. Some cool lighting effects. Looks nice. This is going to be in 1/100 scale, so it's a pretty good size box for this. On the bottom of the box, you can see here it's got that like beam saw blade on a wire sort of weapon that is, again, very similar to, I believe, the Huckbane, one of the versions of the Huckbane, or anyway, something from Super Robot Wars, I remember, had something like that. We got the big cannon and then a base to actually hold that up. That's also going to be very important. And you can see a few other different action poses here showing the different weapons and different ways to display the kit there like that. Around on the other side of the box, just some more images of the what looks like built and painted kit and decaled all there with all the markings and everything on it. Has that cool backpack. The backpack, I believe, is the same as the original version, and more of the kit might be as well. I'll have to take another look at those like side by side, but that big massive gun is certainly going to be very heavy, I think. Then it does come with just like a standard beam rifle sort of weapon there as well, it looks like. Well, let's go ahead and pop it open, check out the contents inside. Right off the bat, you can see there are those effect parts, and we'll check out all the runners in a moment. Underneath all that, we've got our instruction manual and decals and a couple of other smaller runners. We've got this black wire here, which is about 15 centimeters long and is pretty like stiff. So this one should be able to hold up that weapon without any problem. It's going to be a pretty rigid bit of wire there. For the decal sheet, it looks like basically all the decals are going to be here in white, which with the actual Mecha being in like a darker color scheme, it makes sense that these are all in white, but it would have been cool to have some more decals maybe in different colors if you were going to like custom paint it into different colors or something like that. If you wanted to paint it into like a lighter color scheme, then obviously like white decals might be less useful for you. But it looks like mostly kind of standard markings and like little like lining bits there that go on like the edges of the armor. You do have this one kind of logo marking right there, which looks pretty cool. And then we've got our instruction manual, which has a black and white image there on the front and on the back. And it looks like everything is going to be in black and white, unfortunately. So no more color photos or anything with this one. But on the inside, front inside page there, we've got the parts list. And then it gets into the construction. So it looks like, if I'm looking at this correctly, maybe that it's telling us which runners are used like on every page, or maybe that's just by section. Let's see. So because this is the head section, like these are the runners that are going to be used for parts for the head section. And then the next page here, this is the torso section. These are the runners that are going to be used. And it looks like, so we're only going to have that like index along the side of the page just when we're starting a new section. So like then for the arms, it's showing you that. So that's kind of interesting, kind of a unique way to show what runners are used for the different sections of the build. And just gonna kind of continue on like that. Yeah, unfortunately, everything's in black and white. It would have been cool to have a couple of color pages in there. At the very end, we have the setting it up just on the base. And then the marking guide. So the decal guide is gonna be here. In the last couple pages, showing where all the decals go. Then we do have our main plate here for the base, and I was kind of expecting this to be like separate sections that maybe you could like move around, but it's just one big section here for the main base plate. Then getting into the runners, then runner A, here we have two of, and you can see it's got these big cutout missing sections, and if you look closely, we've got two of the A runner here, by the way. This one is actually labeled being from the Mandala, which was the first kit out, and so basically it looks like what they've done is in order to reuse the runners, they're going to reuse some of the parts, and instead of having parts that are like going to be leftover parts, they just removed them from the runners, so you don't even have to worry about like cutting out leftover parts or having leftover parts. It's just that they're omitted from the runner, and I think that's great. I think that that's really cool. I'm not sure if how like cost effective that really is, if like Bandai were to start doing something like that, because I'm not exactly sure what their method was for doing that, but I gotta say it's pretty cool. Then we've got runner A1. Now this one is going to be a new runner here for the Lycoris, and now this one you can see a full runner, and all the inner frame basically here it looks like is going to be in this dark brown gunmetal kind of, I guess, if that makes sense. And then runner B here, once again from the Mandala, is going to be more parts for the frame here, and you can see there's again going to be missing parts that are removed off the runner here for this. This runner B1 here is a new runner for the Lycoris of some parts in the dark navy color. It looks really nice. And then runners C and D are going to be some more inner frame parts here from the Mandala, both of those. Runner C1 here is in a lighter gray color and in a softer rubber, as this is just basically the hose parts that are going to connect the cannon into the chest when you have that connected. Runner D1, however, here in clear red is going to be our effect parts there, looking really nice. Runner E is some more parts from the Mandala, which it looks like basically hand parts, weapons parts, a few more frame type parts there it looks like, and that's I think going to be about the end of the frame parts. Runner E1 is here in a clear bluish color there for basically the clear part for the eyes, and that's it. As next we've got runners F and G, which are going to be some parts there in gray and in kind of a slightly pale yellow kind of color there. It's a nice yellow color. Runners H and J are going to be here in a lighter color of purple. There's runner H, and then runner J. We've got two of these. Again, by the missing sections there, you can tell these are all, again, recycled runners from the Mandala. And the same thing here for runners K, L, M, and N are in this kind of pale navy kind of color, or navy blue, navy, like grayish navy kind of color, I guess is the best way to describe it. I like the color. It does look really nice, but there's runner L. Runner M here is a very sparse runner. The whole middle section's cut out there of runner M, and then runner N, there's some weapons parts it looks like. Runner R here in a kind of medium gray color, looks like parts mostly for the connection arm of the display base, and similarly runner S here, parts to hold up the massive cannon basically. Runner U is a few more parts here in that lighter purple color. Runner W, some more parts in that bluish gray, kind of navy gray kind of color. Runner X, we've got a couple of parts here in a kind of off-white. Runner Y is going to be some more parts here in gray. I think this is mostly parts for that massive cannon, it looks like. And last but not least, runner Z here is some parts that look to be in a plated gold runner here. It's kind of a very orangish gold kind of color, but the plating on there does look pretty nice. That's going to give us a nice accent there for around, I think this is going to be some more parts for the weapon mostly, but we'll check that out in the review. Anyway, that's everything as far as the runners go. Let me go ahead and get this all put together and then we'll check it out. All right, and so here it is all put together. It is a really cool looking kit. I really like the design of this one. That backpack is super cool. And then obviously we've got its big gigantic gun, which is going to be a main feature as well, which we'll take a look at here in just a moment, along with the other accessories. But just taking a look at the main kit on its own, I do really like the colors of it as well. Quite cool, unique color scheme. It's definitely leaning more towards like a purplish blue than a navy blue. But everything went together really smoothly, and I think it looks fantastic. But of course, we do have some awesome accessories here, so let's go ahead and check them out. And so just to start off, as you can see, the kit can stand on its own, but with that backpack there, it is going to be a little bit back heavy, so you have to be careful with that. Of course, we do also have our included stand here, though. It has a couple of adjustment points up here where you can push this button in to adjust the angle of the connection here at the top. On the back side here, you can flip this down to be able to raise that up and down there. And then here at the front, you can flip this down right there, and then that will allow you to change the main angle of the arm here like that. So you do have some nice points of articulation there for the display base. And then we've got these 3 points on here where we also have this additional arm, which just basically has a couple of articulation points here, here, and here. And this is just going to be basically for supporting its massive cannon. And so depending on the pose that you're going for, you can put this in like a different spot there to help support the cannon. For our hand option parts, those are just going to be swappable. So here we've got closed fists. All of the hands just have a thumb on a ball joint, and the fingers are fixed posed. We've also got this set of open hands like this, and 2 different types of weapon holding hands, one with the trigger finger extended and that peg on the inside for plugging into the weapon handle, and then another one here that also has a peg on the inside of the fingers there for holding on to like our beam sabers. And the beam sabers here don't have anywhere to plug onto the kit when not in use, so you just have the handles and the beam effects, which are pretty dynamic there with this big effect part sticking out there. So I like that these are different from like your kind of standard beam saber effect parts that we would get like from a Bandai MG or something. And then those are pretty cool there in that clear red. And this effect part can also be plugged into the forearm here on this side as like a kind of beam tonfa. But as you can see, there's like this little molded bit right there that looks like the beam saber effect parts are like very specifically molded to go into the beam saber handle and not as specifically made to go in there. So even though it fits and it looks fine, if you look like too close, you can see like it kind of doesn't really match exactly. These parts on the sides of the arm here are asymmetrical, but you do actually have two of these. So if you wanted to have those on both sides, you can do that if you want, or you can swap them if you wanted to. Here on this side is just going to be our like beam saw blade kind of weapon here, where we're just going to basically have to swap out that circular disc part here. And you can swap that out with this disc part and like still keep it there attached into the arm. Alternatively, we have this wire here for it. Of course, this is going to shoot out on a wire, and the wire feels plenty substantial enough that we shouldn't have any weight issues with that. It should be able to hold a pose like really nicely, I think. So that will look really cool in action. And before we get to the big cannon, we do just have a regular rifle weapon here, which is also like still pretty good size. I mean, even this rifle weapon is going to be pretty large. It doesn't have any like moving parts or any extra features or anything to it really. It's just kind of pretty simple. You are going to have some seam lines here on the parts a little bit there, but otherwise the color separation of it is really nice. I think it does look pretty cool, especially like considering that you're probably going to end up only wanting to use the massive cannon. This is a pretty nice optional weapon that if you don't end up using with this kit, you could absolutely give it to one of your other like 1/100 scale Gunpla kits or like a different third-party kit or something if you wanted to. But then of course we have the massive cannon here. Now this is pretty cool, quite large, quite heavy too. It's about 17 centimeters in length right now. It is going to extend out a little bit further there, and I do find that these parts are a little bit loose. You might want to put something on this just to make this a little bit tighter fit in there. It's kind of meant to be able to rotate, I suppose, but that whole gold section can rotate in there. So this main part here doesn't need to rotate this. You mean, you could also just kind of glue it in place. I think might be fair. But this does open up. That part opens up there. This part here at the bottom, that part extends down there like that. So that you have to do manually, and that you have to do manually. I'm just going to leave that off for the moment. But these side panels and top panels do also open up, and those will work automatically when you pull this part here at the back. When you pull that out, those other parts, let me try that again just so you guys can see, these other parts all open out like that, which is pretty awesome. So that's going to be how that opens up. And then just attaching the front end once again back in place here. These parts here fold out around the barrel like that. And it makes for a pretty impressive looking weapon here for sure. And then of course we've got our effect parts that are going to fit inside of here. Now one thing that I'll tell you about these effect parts is that they're very sharp. So we've got 4 of these longer ones and then 4 of these smaller ones that are going to fit in and around the weapon. And we'll see how that looks in just a moment when in use. But yeah, some of these points on there are really sharp. I definitely poked my finger a couple times trying to remove the nubs on these while working on these parts, so do be careful with them, but those are going to look really cool when in use. One other thing to point out is that you do have here at the back these 2 parts that will fold out to reveal secondary handles here on the side, as you are definitely going to want to use a 2-handed grip on this. The kit does seem pretty solid, but this is definitely a pretty heavy weapon in hand. So here at the bottom, you can see where this is going to plug into that extra support base that we have with this. And then at the back end here, this part is going to fold down, and then this can be plugged into a slot here actually at the front skirt. So this part here is going to fold down like that, and that can be slotted down right into there. And then we have these 2 flexible cables that are going to be plugged into those 2 holes there at like the front lower part of the torso there, and the other end going to go into these spots here. So you can just use it kind of like handheld and not like fully connected into the body, fully connected into like with these hoses and with it connected into the front skirt. You can just kind of just have it held in hand or in multiple hands, whatever. But for like sort of the full power effect, you're supposed to have it connected into the front, sort of like the Doven Wolf, I think, as well as the Huckbane, I believe, from Super Robot Wars has a similar kind of weapon that also attaches into the front of it. But that's it for the accessories, but we do have some more gimmicks and things to point out here with the main kit. The eyes there are in clear blue, but definitely painting those would make them stand out a bit more. But you do have some really nice color separation like throughout the entirety of the kit, but it looks really good here on the head as well with those different color parts going on. Around here on the backpack, each of these little doors will open up, and kind of tricky to get in there, so I would recommend using tweezers or something. There we go, something like that. that. Now, it would have been nice if those parts fit in there in a way to make that all the missiles are like aligned with like that little line detail on them. So unfortunately, if you want to have those lined up, you have to like turn them all manually. And so it's something that you could do maybe when you're going through the assembly of the kit, line them up and just glue those down in place would be my recommendation to you guys. And this part here in the center also opens up like that, and I'm not exactly entirely sure why. I thought, well, okay, maybe that's where you're meant to store the beam saber handles meant to fit in there, but they kind of don't really fit as far as I can tell into that section, so don't really know why that opens up like that, but it can. Anyway, the articulation here of these can also move side to side, up and down like that, so you can move these kind of pods around as needed. At the center part of the backpack here as well, as you can see where the display base is going to plug up into the backpack, so not up underneath the skirt section, which is kind of normal. Each of these thruster bells is also on a ball joint, but they don't really move all that much. Same thing with like the fuel tanks, you can kind of move them around a little bit. And I do like that we have separated parts for the interior color section of the thruster bells. That's pretty nice. And then just some more nice detail around here generally. I like how all like the frame detail parts kind of poke out through the armor there, and like the side skirts even you can see here at the back of the leg. This little panel here that will open up a little bit there like that to expose more thrusters there in the back of the leg kind of. Each of these parts of ankle armor at the back and sides and front are all movable there. Point the toe all the way down like that and then up underneath the feet. It's nice detail there. The side skirts move out of the way to the side there, and the front skirts move up out of the way, so the skirt armor is not going to be in the way of your leg articulation at all. And then here at the knee, when we bend the knee, it's pretty tight here. As you can see, we're going to get some nice separation of that knee armor, a nice full bend there at the knee as well. This like inner piece of armor comes out from the front piece of armor there, so that looks really nice. In the torso section, you've got a little bit of side to side and front and back movement there, not like a whole lot, pretty good amount there. And then here at the elbow is a pretty standard double jointed elbow, as you might expect. And then a really nice detail like even up underneath the shoulder armor here. So you've got these big massive shoulder armor parts, and then a lot of nice detail up under there, so it's not just a big like hollow gap. So that is really nice. And then even with this pointed up, this lower vent here is also articulated. You can kind of bend that down, move that down a little bit. So it is just a really nicely engineered kit. And then just for a size comparison here, I know my Gundam's missing his V-fin, but as you guys can see, it's going to fit in pretty well with a standard 1/100 scale, like a master grade style Gundam kit. Just in terms of the size, it is going to be like a little bit taller there, as you can see, so pretty nice size to it. So overall, guys, as we get into taking a look at the kit and some different poses here, I've got to say it is really impressive looking for sure. Really happy with this one. There wasn't really any issue at all just going through the construction with like fit issues or anything like that. Everything went together really smoothly. There are a couple of little seam lines here and there that, I mean, you wish that there was none, but they're pretty minimal. Overall, everything goes together smoothly. And I know that like the style for a lot of these kits these days is to have like a metal frame or parts of a metal frame. And I'm gotta say, I like that this one doesn't, because although those like can be cool, personally, I'm not that big of a fan, and I like just the all plastic inner frame of this one. But let me know what you guys think. I know that people are probably mixed on their opinions on those parts. All in all though, I gotta say this one basically feels exactly like if it were just like a Bandai Master Grade for the most part. Just in terms of the complexity and the design, the details and everything. You get a lot of great accessories with this, between the rifle, the huge mega cannon, the beam sabers, and that cool beam saw weapon as well as the missile pods up on the backpack and everything. So a lot of really great posing options with this one as well for how you might want to have it displayed up on the shelf. Those effect parts for the massive cannon are cool. And then of course the nice thing about this is that it does come with that display base and water slide decals and everything else that are less standard when it comes to like if this was a Bandai Master Grade. So it's awesome, and definitely one that I would recommend, especially if you're a Super Robot Wars fan as well. As I mentioned before, it reminds me a lot of like the Huckabane or other Super Robot Wars designs, not only just like the color scheme but the weapons and all that. So it definitely seems very inspired by Super Robot Wars if nothing else, but I'm here for it. It's a really cool design. It's original, but then definitely like just borrows some ideas from other designs. So I think that's perfectly fine. The main thing is that it looks awesome and it comes with everything that you could want. So I gotta say, one that I can definitely recommend to you guys. If you've already built the Mandala and you're wondering if you want to get like another version of like essentially the same kit, there's a lot of the kit that's shared, but definitely a good amount that's new as well. I would say it's definitely worth it just because it's a completely different color scheme. There is enough different in there that I think it would set it apart. It wouldn't feel like just building the same kit again. But let me know what you guys think about this kit down in the comment section. And if you want to check out the kit for yourself, you can do so at USA Gundam Store. The link, as always, will be in the video description. And of course, guys, thank you so much for checking out the video here today. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like. If you're not yet subscribed, you can subscribe there as well. I really appreciate all your support. Thank you so much. Until next time, hope you all are doing well. See y'all later. Bye, guys.